When we're dealing with portrait photography retouching techniques, there's a couple principles to keep in mind. First one I want to go over is keeping it subtle. You don't want to overdo these techniques. For example, if we're softening skin, we don't want to soften it so much that the person looks plastic. We want to be able to see their pores to an extent. You don't want to remove all the pores, for example. I'm not saying don't get rid of pimples, things like that, but if the person has a mole or a freckle and it's just part of their personality, their visual persona, then just keep it. Or we can also use opacity to remove some of these things slightly, but still have a hint of it left. So we don't want to overdo things, and especially you don't want to show the person, the before and after, because you don't want them to feel bad like you did all these things in Photoshop to make them look better. So keep it subtle so the photo looks realistic and it doesn't look kind of fake and, over Photoshopped. Second principle I want to go over is working on duplicated layers. So if we're going to add an effect to a layer, instead of using the background layer, just duplicate it first, and then we can add an effect to that duplicated layer. Then we can adjust how strong that effect is by adjusting the opacity of that new layer. And if we mess up the layer, we can always go back to the original layer and duplicate it again so that we can work on a new layer. Third thing I want to go over is using adjustment layers. Instead of just going to image, adjustment, hue, saturation, we should just add a new adjustment layer that is a hue saturation adjustment layer. Then we can not only adjust the opacity of it and also mask out parts of it, but we're not editing the original layer. It's a new layer that can be adjusted, and it's a live adjustment. You can double click on the adjustment layer and edit the effect after the effect. And a fourth principle is using layer masks. So we don't want to erase, that's destructive editing. We want to mask out layers, and then we can paint black and white and grayscale in between to selectively toggle the visibility of that layer. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started in these retouching techniques.